this video, I'm going to be demonstrating the Festool Kapex miter saw and all its different functions. All right, let's start with some of the basics. The miter saw is a saw that cuts when you drop the blade down into the wood, and you can't lower the motor in the blade until you pull this trigger in. Right, that allows you to go up and down. To start the motor, you have to tap this green button. Then to stop the motor, you release the trigger. Let's go over that one more time. Pull the trigger in. While holding this in, tap the button. And release. That stops the machine. All right, this also cuts by pulling the blade out and pushing it. We would use that operation for wider stock. If you're not using that, make sure you have this locked in the back position. We can also change the angle of the blade. Currently it's set at 0 degrees. And there's a detent for all the frequently used angles, like 15, 22 and a half, 30, and 45, on both the left and the right side. If you're cutting an infrequent angle, like let's say 20 degrees, you need to lock the handle down to keep it in place. All right, this saw also tilts to the left and the right to do compound angles. This is not an application we use in this class. Primarily, we just do single angles, not compounds. But the saw can do that. All right, let's get to the basics of cutting. First of all, we have a fence stop over here that has a ruler edge. All right, so I can take this, set the black line, not the end of the plastic, but the black line, at whatever dimension I want to cut. I'm going to go ahead and cut this to 16. Tighten that. I put the board up against the stop. My left hand supports the stock while my right hand operates the machine. I want to keep my fingers at least 6 inches away from the blade at all times. So I lower the blade to about an inch away from the material I'm going to cut, to press the green button. Lower the blade. Let the blade come to a complete stop, and then bring up the saw. The Festool miter saw also has a built-in clamp. You lower that, lower the green lever, and it locks it in place, and I'm ready to cut. So on this one, I have it set at 22.5 degrees. Same technique. Pull the trigger, lower the blade, press the green button, release, then bring up. If I'm cutting wider stock, I'm going to release this knob, pull the saw out, depress the trigger, push the button, push it all the way back, release. When the blade stops, bring up the saw. Once again, when you're done cutting wider stock, please lock it in the back position. Now a few don'ts with the miter saw. Before you cut, always check for small pieces that are around the blade. We want to remove those prior to cutting. Also look for small pieces that might be interfering with the board that you're cutting, all right, so that we don't get a board pinched. Never, ever cross arm. Cross arm is where you have one arm over here and you're cutting down. All right, as stupid as that looks, people still do it. All right, especially on this angle cut over here. They feel that that's safe, but what can happen is it can grab the sleeve of your shirt, pull it in, and then pull your arm in. So never cross arm. Your left hand is always on this side, your right hand is always here. Never cut a board that has a gap at the fence where the blade is. You can see how it's touching here and here, but there's a gap here. Never cut a board like that. Also, never cut a board that has a gap on the table where the blade is. All right, so what I would do with a board like this, number one, flip it over so the crown edge is against the fence. and the crown face is on the table, like so. That way, the board's touching the fence where the blade is, and it's also touching the table where the blade is. I don't like doing this, but I'm gonna do it. So I just grabbed a board that has a big gap right here and a big gap right there, and I'm gonna see what happens when I attempt to cut this. And this is stuck on the blade. Whew. The Festool Capex miter saw is a great tool. Just remember, never cross arm. Always keep your fingers 6 inches away from the blade or anything else that moves. Always wear safety glasses, keep the sleeves rolled up, and make sure that your piece is stable on the table and tight against the fence. All right, thanks for watching. Keep it safe.